At 2 minutes to 6 in the morning on the Indonesian island of Flores, the first warning anyone received was the wall of their own bedroom. It shook, and then it fell. 6 days earlier, on the other side of the world, in Colombia, it happened exactly the same way. The warning was the shaking itself. Around 300 people died in those two earthquakes, and in both countries, the number of seconds of official warning was the same: 0. Here's what makes that number strange. In Mexico City, when a big quake begins, sirens sound up to 60 seconds before the shaking arrives. Not because Mexico was rich. When it built those sirens, it wasn't. The trick is pure physics. Shaking spreads through the ground the way ripples spread through a pond, a few kilometers every second. A radio signal travels at the speed of light, about 100,000 times faster. So if a sensor feels a quake where it starts and sends out a message, the message beats the shaking to your city by whole seconds. Those seconds come free with every earthquake on Earth. Whether anything is there to catch them and sound a siren, that is decided somewhere else entirely, in a budget line written decades before the ground moves. First, the two quakes. On the 15th of August at 5:58 in the morning, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck 68 kilometers off the coast of Flores in eastern Indonesia. At least 51 people died. The number was still rising as we recorded this. More than 500,000 people felt very strong shaking. Over 200 aftershocks followed, and landslides cut off the region closest to the epicenter for a full day. For the ocean wave, there was a warning. Indonesia's geophysics agency issued a tsunami alert within minutes, and waves over 1.5 meters did hit the coast. But for the shaking itself, the thing that actually brought the buildings down, there was nothing their own country had built. No siren network, no official alert, no seconds anyone was responsible for delivering. 6 days earlier, Colombia. Magnitude 7.4, the strongest earthquake there in a century. More than 250 people died. Buildings collapsed in 2 major cities, and the same detail hides in the reports. Colombia has no public warning system for shaking either. So in one August week, 2 magnitude 7 earthquakes, around 300 dead, 0 official seconds of warning between them. The usual story writes itself: the ring of fire, poorer countries, terrible luck. But hold that story against one fact. Mexico switched on its earthquake sirens in 1991, and Mexico in 1991 was not wealthier than Colombia or Indonesia today. Japan pipes its warnings automatically into every phone and every TV channel. California switched on public alerts in 2019, and the rest of the American West Coast followed 2 years later. All of these places sit on the same restless faults. The difference isn't geology, and it isn't wealth. The difference is a rule. Some countries passed a law that buys those seconds, and some never did. So what exactly does the law buy? Watch the race up close, because the ground gives the warning another head start. An earthquake doesn't send out one wave, it sends 2. The first is fast but gentle. It travels at about 6 kilometers a second and mostly just announces what's coming. The destructive wave runs behind it at roughly half that speed. So a sensor near the fault feels the first gentle wave, and its radio message races ahead of the slow destructive one. The farther you live from the epicenter, the bigger the heads start. Right at the epicenter, there's a blind zone. No system on Earth can warn you there. But Colombia's quake broke 100 kilometers underground. The destructive wave still had all that ground to climb, and the climb was worth tens of seconds for the cities above. On Flores, the epicenter lay 68 kilometers offshore. Call it 10 to 15 seconds for the coast. Mexico City gets its famous 60 because the dangerous coast is 300 kilometers away, and what is 10 seconds worth? You can't leave a building in 10 seconds, but you can get under a table before the ceiling comes down. A surgeon lifts the scalpel away from the patient. An elevator opens at the nearest floor instead of stopping between them. In Japan, bullet trains brake automatically. A gas valve closes. A fire station door opens before the shaking can jam its frame. Seconds don't save everyone. They save some, reliably every single time. So the seconds exist, already paid for by physics. lying in the ground under Flores exactly as they lie under Mexico City. Why did they reach one place and not the other? Because between the wave and your phone stands a machine, and the machine is boring. Thousands of sensors planted along the faults, data lines that work at 5:58 on a Saturday morning, software that must decide in about 2 seconds, real quake or passing truck, a channel with the legal right to seize every TV, radio, and phone in the country at once, and people who know what to do with their 10 seconds because they've drilled it since school. None of this is glamorous, and all of it has to be paid for every single year for sensors that spend almost their entire lives detecting nothing. In a calm year's budget, a machine that does nothing has another name, a cut, which is why the list of countries that own this machine follows one grim pattern. Mexico built its system only after 1985, when a magnitude 8 quake killed thousands in Mexico City. By some estimates, 10,000. 6 years later came the sirens. 2 years after that, the world's first public earthquake broadcast. Japan switched on nationwide automatic alerts in 2007 after the Kobe quake of 1995 killed more than 6,000 people. The United States funded its West Coast system after decades of California damage. Every one of these laws was written in its own country's blood. A foreign catastrophe, it turns out, doesn't write laws. Colombia and Indonesia have been watching Mexico's sirens work for 35 years, and Indonesia has already proved the other half of the rule on itself. After the 2004 tsunami, foreign donors gave it 22 state-of-the-art warning buoys. Within 8 years, every single one was dead, vandalized, stolen for parts, or simply broken with no money assigned to fix them. The gift had bought the sensors. No law ever bought their upkeep. When the city of Palu was hit by a tsunami in 2018, the warning system did not have one working buoy. Equipment is a purchase. Seconds are a subscription. So if a country wants its seconds, there are 3 known ways to buy them and 3 different currencies to pay in. Design 1, the state machine. Mexico's way, Japan's way. A law names one agency as the owner of the whole chain from sensor to siren and funds it permanently. The currency is a standing budget line that survives every calm year. False alarms the public has to forgive and drills that never stop. It's the expensive way. But when it fails, the failure has an address, an agency, a minister, a parliament that must answer questions. Design 2, the free layer. Since 2020, Google has run an earthquake warning system built from Android phones themselves, every handset a tiny sensor. It covers about 100 countries, including Indonesia and Colombia, and it costs their governments nothing, no law required. The currency here is accountability, and Turkey found the price. In February 2023, at 4:17 in the morning, a magnitude 7.8 quake hit 11 provinces. 10 million people were close enough to receive the loud wake you up alarm. The algorithm misread the quake. It estimated it at around magnitude 4.5, and the loud alarm went to 469 people. 500,000 got a silent notification instead, the kind that doesn't break through a sleeping phone. More than 50,000 people died that morning. Most of them no phone alarm could have saved. But here is the part that matters for our question. Google first said the system had performed well. The admission that it hadn't came 2.5 years later in a scientific journal, not in front of any parliament, because no parliament can summon it. Google itself calls the system a supplement, not a replacement. And that answers the question you may have been holding since the start. Were phones buzzing on Flores that morning? The system covers Indonesia. Whether it fired there, how loudly, and for whom, nobody can compel an answer. That is what 0 official seconds means. Free seconds are seconds nobody owes you. Design 3. Make the population the sensor. On the island of Simeulue, closest land to the 2004 epicenter, no official warning system even existed in that ocean, and the wave was minutes away. Out of 80,000 people, only a handful died. Their warning system was a word, smong, a story passed down from grandparents. That long shaking means run uphill immediately without waiting for anyone's permission. Chile runs the same idea at national scale. Schools drill one doctrine. Strong, long shaking is the warning. The currency here is decades of patient education, and it comes with a hard limit. It only works when you can feel the shaking. A distant wave from a quiet sea gives no cue, and the memory fades about one generation after the last disaster. Nothing here is exclusive, by the way. Japan runs the state machine and the drilled population at once, and its phones carry the alerts too. The question is only whether a country runs any of them. So come back to 2 minutes to 6 on Flores. The seconds were there. They were in the ground, free of charge. The same physics working over Flores that works over Mexico City. What differed was everything built or never built in the decades before. The sensors, the law that owns them, the budget line that keeps them alive, the reflex drilled into a sleeping population. None of it can be bought on the morning it's needed. So the next time an earthquake is in the headlines, the revealing question isn't how strong was it? It's this: how many seconds had that country bought, and in which currency? A budget line with an owner's name on it, a free app that answers to no one, a story taught to children, and underneath sits a darker pattern, the one this whole story keeps repeating. Every warning law on Earth so far was paid for in its own country's blood first. Mexico after 1985, Japan after Kobe. If your country's seconds still cost zero, that zero is not the price. It's the down payment.